Just a minute, I will share this. So we are the Kshetra, that is the material body. Kshetrajna is the supreme personality of the Godhead Lord Krishna who know about us. Different analogies have been explained for this. When you read the chapter, we'll come to know like a king and his citizens. A citizen will be knowing only about his land, but the king will be knowing about the land of the entire citizen. This. Okay. So, anybody wanted to recite the shloka?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Will I try, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Arjuna Vacha. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva. Kshetram Kshetra Jnaneva cha. Itad Veditum Ichhami. Jnanam Gneyam cha Keshava. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha. Idam Sariram Kaunteya. Kshetram iti abhidhiyate idat yo vitti tam prahu kshetragnya iti tadvidaha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Translation.
Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Arjuna said, "Oh my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field and the knower of the field, and knowledge and the object of knowledge." The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." Purport. Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field, Kshetrajna, its knower, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all this, Krishna said that his body is called the field and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is a field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. The field of activity is the body. And what is the body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification. And according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or field of activity. Therefore, the body is called kshetra or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called kshetrajna, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age, he undergoes so many changes of the body, and yet it's still one person remaining. Thus, there is a difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living conditioned soul can thus understand that he is different from the body. It is described in the beginning, Dehino Asmin, that the living entity is within the body and that the body is changing from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth and from youth to old age. And the person who knows the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly kshetrajna. Sometimes we think, I am happy, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a dog, I am a cat. These are the bodily designations of the knower. But the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from things used. Similarly, we also understand from a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the field of activities, and the body is called Kshetra, the field of activities itself. In the first six chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship between the individual soul and the super soul in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate under all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness, they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities, as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. That is also described. Now, starting with the 13th chapter, how is the living entity comes in contact with material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme through the different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. This also is explained. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, this particular shloka and the explanation is more or less about the jiva and the body by which we identify oneself and the activities related to that. Okay. So, next one. Yes. Who is going to recite this?
Hare Krishna Mataji, may I?
Yes, Mataji.
Shloka 3. Kshetra Kshetra Jnanam Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarvakshetreshu Bharata Kshetra Kshetagnayor Jnanam Yattad Jnanam Matam Mama. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Purport. While discussing the subject of the body and the knower of the body, the soul, and the supersoul, we shall find three different topics of study: the Lord, the living entity, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are two souls: the individual soul and the super soul. Because the super soul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I am not the individual knower of the body. I am the super knower. I am present in every body as the Paramatma or super soul. One who studies the subject matter of the field of activity and the knower of the field very minutely in terms of Bhagavad Gita can attain to knowledge. The Lord says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as the Supersoul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, the analogy, okay. But the king knows not only his palace, but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The body consists of the senses. The Supreme Lord is Rishikesha, which means the controller of the senses. He is the original controller of the senses. Just as the king is the original controller of all the activities of the state, the citizens are secondary controllers. The Lord says, I am also the knower. This means that he is the superknower. The individual soul knows only his particular body. In the Vedic literature, it is stated as follows: Kshetrani क्षेत्राणि हि शरीराणि बीजं चापि शुभाशुभे तानि वेत्ति स योगात्मा तथ क्षेत्रज्ञ उच्यते. This body is called the Kshetra, and within it dwells the owner of the body and the Supreme Lord, who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Therefore, he is called the knower of all fields. The distinction between the field of activities, the knower of activities, and the supreme knower of activities is described as follows. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, the constitution of the supersoul is known in terms of Vedic literature as jnana. This is this is the opinion of Krishna. To understand both the soul and the supersoul as one yet distinct is knowledge. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower, who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in their different capacities. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the eel. This material world, which is the field of activities, is nature, and the enjoyer of nature is the living entity. And above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Vedic language in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 1.12 Bhokta Bhogyam प्रेरितारं च मत्वा सर्वं प्रोक्तं त्रिविधं ब्रह्मम् एतत्. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti is Brahman as the field of activities, and the Jiva, individual soul, is also Brahman and is trying to control material nature. And the controller of both of them is also Brahman, but he is the factual controller. In this chapter, it will also be explained that out of the two knowers, one is fallible and the other is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies and there are different owners of the bodies. Because each individual soul has his individual capacity for lording it over material nature, there are different bodies. But the Supreme also is present in them as a controller. The word Cha is significant, for it indicates the total number of bodies. That is the opinion of Srila Baladeva Vidya Bhushana. Krishna is a super soul present in each and every body apart from the individual soul. And Krishna explicitly says here that real knowledge is to be known, that the super soul is the controller of both the field of activities and the finite enjoyer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So various analogy starting from king and his citizens and what do you say it? Just a minute. Different analogies. So the whole process of knowing doing the sadhana bhakti is to know the Lord which is there within as a soul. Okay. Like he knows each and every soul who are there and their activities, their interaction, their good and bad, everything. But what do you say? The individual will only know about them, but the super soul know about the all materialistic body who are there. As we have learned in our previous chapter, 7th chapter, like ours is what is it? The jiva is having only the temporary body, and the Paramatma is having the permanent spiritual body and all. So ultimately, he is the controller, and he is the one who creates, maintains, and annihilates. So the real knowledge in today's life is only to know the super soul who is seeding as a soul within each and every individual. Yeah. Next one, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Devotees, please volunteer to read. Anyone? Shravananand Prabhu, Vamshidhar Prabhu.
तत्क्षेत्रं यच्च यदृक्ष यद्विकारी यतश्च यत् स च यो यत्प्रभावश्च तत्सामसेन मे शृणु. Yes, you can read the translation.
Hare Krishna Mata.
Yeah.
Translation quoted given by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Gita. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. But the Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of field of activities in their constitutional positions. One has to know how this body is constituted, the material of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what are the reasons are, what are the ultimate goal of the individual soul is, what the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul, their different influences and their potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everybody to be one with the individual soul, the Jiva. This is something like equating the potent and impotent. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So the entire activity is know the Lord within. All the activities we are doing will eventually help us to know about Him. Whatever the results which we are there in day-to-day interactions, good, bad, or whatever. So the ultimate source, like why it is happening and all, we could relate because of our interaction with the material nature. So one has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, and this will be clarified. So again, He is there in everyone, but our journey is only to know that Lord within. Yeah. Hare Krishna, yes.
Prasanachit Prabhu, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. ऋषिभिर्बहुधा गीतां छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितम्. Synonyms: Rishibhi, by the wise sages, Bahuda, in many ways, Geetam, described, Chandobhi, by Vedic hymns, Vividhai, various, Pratak, variously, Brahma Sutra of the Vedanta, Padai, by the aphorisms, Cha also, Eva certainly, Etu must be, with cause and effect, Vinishchitai certain. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the super soul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. First, he says this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage. And in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadeva's father, Parasara, is also a great sage. And he writes in his books of religiosity, Aham Tvam Cha Tatanye, we are we you and I, and we you and I are various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we are fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature according to our different karma. As such, some are on higher levels and some are in the lower nature. The highest and lower nature exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the super soul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul and the super soul and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parasara is considered principal among them. The word Chandobi refers to the various Vedic literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of the Yajurveda, describes nature, the living entity, and the supreme personality of Godhead. As stated below, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetrajna. The individual Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, anybody else can continue?
Hare Krishna. I'll continue, Mataji.
Yeah.
Yes,
From where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority of explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non duality of the soul and the supersoul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. First, he says, this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, beside himself, Vyasadeva, the authority, the author of Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage, and in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadeva's father, Parasara, is also a great sage. And he writes in his book of religiosity, Aham Tvam Cha Tatha Nye. We, you, I, and the various other living entities are transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we are fallen into the ways of three modes of material nature according to our different karma. As such, some are on the higher levels and some are in the lower nature. The higher and lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in a infinite number of living entities. But the super soul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul, the supersoul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parashara is considered principal among them. The word Chandobhiha refers to various Vedic literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of Yajurveda, describes nature, the living entity, and the supreme personality of Godhead. As stated before, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetrajna, the individual living. Hare Krishna Mataji. Can you scroll it down? Thank you. And there are two kinds of Kshetrajna, the individual living entity and the supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahma Pucham Pratishtha, there is a manifestation of Supreme Lord's energy known as Anna Maya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of Supreme. Then in Pranamaya, after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in food, one can realize the Absolute Truth in the living symptoms or living forms. In Jnanamaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Then there is Brahman realization called Vijnanamaya.
Vijnanamaya.
Vijnanamaya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of all blissful nature. Thus, there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahma Ucham. Out of these, the first 3, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the fields of activities and the living entities. Transcendental to all these field of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamayo Bhayasat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jnanamaya, and Annamaya. In the field of activities, the living entities is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, the living entity as the subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities. One has to search for this truth in Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. It is mentioned here that the codes of Brahma Sutra are very nicely arranged according to the cause and effect. Some of the sutras or aphorisms are Navyad Asrutha, Natma Shutah, and Paratu Tatshutah. The first aphorism indicates a field of activities, the second indicates a living entity, and the third indicates the Supreme Lord, the Saman Bonam among all the manifestations of various entities. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna. In the process of realizing God, the we being the soul and the discovering the soul within uh, various process we undergo, like reading the scriptures, following the regulative principles, doing the service unto the Lord. Okay, so by various means, our intelligence will be more sharpened. The more we'll be doing the sadhana, the more we will come to know about the Lord. Okay, so various stages are being explained here in the literature. As per the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahmapucham Pratishtha. So Brahmapucham first is the Annamaya, that is your consciousness and your practice is limited only to feeding your gross body. That is the Annamaya stage. Okay. Next is the Pranamaya stage, that is realization, after realizing the supreme absolute truth in the food, one realizes the absolute truth in living symptoms of the life forms. One try to have the control of the breath, control of the existential things which make your you can fix your mind upon one particular thing. Okay. Next is the Jnanamaya, that is beyond the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. You are realizing more about the Lord. Next, Vijnanamaya is again the entire mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. So next stage is Anandamaya. This is a blissful stage. Okay. These are the 5 stages of the Brahman realization. We can take example of Dhruv Maharaj, who went to the forest and meditating upon the Lord. undergo all these stages. Initial stage, he was feeding only on the roots and the fruits which are available in the forest and all. Later, he was concentrating only on his breath. Then, after certain time, standing on only one leg, he was constantly meditating upon the Lord. So, once he has gone about that, he will totally engrossed in the sadhana. At last, Lord Vishnu will appear in front of him. So these are the various stages by which one has to go. Your sadhana, the more amount of sadhana you will be doing, you will grow in these stages. So based on that, your field of activity also involved. The more you're on the lower level, that feeding your body, then your field of activities will be in 3 different modes. Once you're going up, then your field of activity will get restricted to 1 or 2, then finally into 1. So this first aphorism indicates the field of activity, second indicates living entity, third indicates the Supreme Lord. So, so all this materialistic manifestation, that's what, depending on which stage you are, depending on your sadhana, uh, which stage of realization you are, based on that, your activity will be there. Okay. Hare Krishna. I think we'll limit to today. Tomorrow we'll continue. So today we have learned about the body, the knower of the body, various analogies like the supreme, the king and the citizens. So the activities of the body by which one can elevate, who is the ultimate person who knows about the body, and various levels of realization when we are practicing to know about the Lord. So any questions, anything you can ask?
Hare Krishna. Oh, sorry.
Hare Krishna. I'm extremely sorry for today. There was a bit late and I couldn't take the complete 1 hour class, but tomorrow for sure we will take 1 hour class. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Mataji, this Annamaya Kosha, which they are saying, no, I mean, realization of Brahman, is it like, because they've written, Prabhupada is saying material. I mean, could the example be demigod worship? I'm little bit not able to understand that Annamaya part. I mean,
Mataji, it
if a
is
person
basic.
is materialistic, if a person is on the materialistic level, then he wouldn't endeavor only to understand, isn't it, Mataji? I'm a bit confused here.
No, Mataji, it is not about materialism. It is about the basic survival. Life has to survive because we have to feed our body. If we don't feed our body, we will obviously perish. Isn't it? When your activities are restricted only to feed your body and make it alive, that is the basic stage, Mataji, Annamaya stage. Nothing to do with the materialistic thing and all.
Okay, so in that stage, how does he realize absolute truth? Why is it connected to absolute truth? Your real? Why is it connected to Brahman realization then?
Yeah, by doing that, in that also, see, some they eat 3 times a day. They say no, 3 times a day rogi, 2 times a day bhogi, and 1 time a day yogi. There is one saying. So first restriction and first win over yourself, like, is to have a control over the food. Once you have a control over the food, then automatically all your senses will come under control.
Okay,
So in the Anandamaya stage only, you have to regulate your food habits, your eating habits, your what is required for the body. You should give the fuel only that much.
oh, okay. Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Prabhuji is. Hare Krishna.
I don't think Mataji anyone has any questions.
Yeah, thank you. So. Okay. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Thank you, co-host and participants. See you all tomorrow at 7 p.m. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.